zodiac is right here where Argo is in the constellation of Cancer. So you have Cancer here, Argo the ship, Ursa Minor, Ursa Major. In Gemini, you have Canis Major and Canis Minor, and there's the ship right there, bringing in the twos and the twos. Okay. Now I didn't make that up. You want to read the Venerable Bedes, and he was from the 6th century, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so and it also there is the incident in the Cancer sector where Jesus talks to the Syro-Phoenician woman about not giving children's food to the dogs. Well, that would be because the dogs are over here. In fact, Marcus Manilius, he mentions in this book, Marcus Manilius places one of the dogs, Procyon, in the sector of Cancer and not Gemini, as modern astrologers do. So there's the Cancer in the Gospel. Leo. Interesting. Leo. Let's have a good look at Leo, Virgo, and Libra. In Leo, as I've discussed before in my Astrotheology presentations, there's Cancer, there's Leo, and there's Libra. On the 6th of August, which happens right about here, the middle of the hottest part of the year, on the 6th of August, the Catholic Church calls that day the Transfiguration of Jesus Christ. The 6th of August, it's the middle of Leo. It's the middle of summer. It would be, and the dog, Sirius, is behind the sun, so you've got the dog days. There's a famous painting by Raphael. This is very famous. And there's Jesus Christ at the Transfiguration, and there's his apostles there, and they saw, I think it's Moses and Elijah. Okay, so let's have a listen. Let's have a look at and see how Mark ties that in with the sign of Leo. So on a journey to Caesarea Philippi, Jesus asks his disciples, "Who do you say that I am?" The text goes on. They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others, one of the prophets. But what about you?" He asked. "Who do you say I am?" Well, Jesus takes them to an unusually high mountain, and that's the unusually high mountain. And it says, 6 days after, in fact, I'll read that from the Bible. This is too good to be lost. Here's Mark chapter 9. So you see, he's going to be dealing with the Transfiguration and the glory. So all these themes are dealt with in Mark chapter 8 and chapter 9 in the Leo sector of the Gospel of Mark. Okay? Mark 9 verse 2. 6 days later, right, remember the 6th of August is the Transfiguration Day, and they're giving you a hint. 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John and led them up a high mountain where they could be alone by themselves. There, in their presence, he was transfigured. His clothes became dazzlingly white, whiter than any earthly bleacher could make them. Elijah appeared to them with Moses, and they were talking with Jesus. There you have it, Elijah and Moses, Peter, Andrew and James on the mountain, 6 days after he was transfigured. Well, that's the 6th of August. I mean, it's really blatant. When you know what you're looking for and you're reading the Gospels and you know the stars that are there and what they do and what they mean, you can't mistake this. There is no excuse for churchgoers to start going, "Oh yeah, but you're looking into it," and it's not. It is there. And if you're not seeing it, it's because you're not looking. Simple as that. Now, let's see if I can chug along a little bit more. Interesting. We have another similar painting by Titian around about the same time as the Raphael. That's the Virgin. and the Assumption of the Virgin on the 15th of August, just a week after the Transfiguration. Wonder what's going on. Well, that would be the Sun in Leo, because he rules in Leo and he's transfigured in Leo. Virgo, I made a big mistake before, didn't I? That's Virgo, not Libra. Libra is here. Yeah, I confused you, didn't I? Virgo on the 15th of August disappears behind the Sun. That's the Assumption of the Virgin. Because on the 8th of September, over here, she gets reborn again, doesn't she? That's the Nativity, because she reappears. You see, when the Sun is in a sign, the sign disappears. You can't see it, because, well, for instance, we're in, today's the 13th of November. That's Scorpio territory. Now it's, what's the time? It's 2 o'clock. So the Sun is above us. Behind the Sun is the Scorpion. You cannot see it in November. It's gone. And so that's why the Virgin Mary ascends and then she's born again. The Nativity of the Virgin. Yeah, it's all on cue. All right, let's see what Virgo has. Virgo has teaching about humility, little children, warning against passivity and service, because the 6th house, or Virgoans are very service-oriented. It's the sign of service, okay? So in the Gospel, Jesus is talking about service. Serve one another, etc. If anyone wants to be first, he must be the very last and servant of all. So there's the theme of service. If anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them if a large millstone were hung around their neck and they were thrown into the sea. So that's also Virgoan themes. All right, let's move on. I know I'm going to regret taking chunks out of this because there are so many good points, but you just can't. All I can do is show you some choice bits, and if the subject interests you, I would be getting this book. It's just phenomenal. Okay, Libra. The entry of the Sun into Libra marks the autumnal equinox in the Northern Hemisphere, when day and night are equal once again. This is the midpoint of the year, the moment of equilibrium, when the forces symbolised by the day and the night are in perfect counterpoise. This has happened before, of course, when the Sun entered Aries in the springtime. But there is a difference between these opposite but complementary points. At the spring equinox, the point of poise occurs before the daylight begins to dominate. In the autumn, this is reversed, and the balance point presages the forthcoming massing of the darkness. The eternal interplay of light and darkness is symbolised in the zodiac itself, which on one level is nothing more than the yearly cycle projected on the sky. The first 6 signs then come under the dominion of daylight. The first 6 signs come under the dominion of daylight. And can be said to represent the light of individual consciousness, struggling to establish its identity. This process is associated with the Sun, the giver of light. It begins in Aries, the sign of the Sun's exaltation, and reaches its climax in Sun-ruled Leo. The signs which follow the autumnal equinox, however, are characterised by the gathering darkness and have to do with the group to which individuality has to be incorporated, if not submerged. These are social signs, which begin with Libra, the sign of the Sun's fall or depression, and which reach their point of maximum power in Aquarius, the sign in modern astrological jargon of the Sun's detriment. Interesting. In ancient Egypt, Libra was associated with Ma'at, the goddess of cosmic harmony and justice, whose special task was to weigh the hearts of the dead on the scales of justice, balanced against an ostrich feather, and she is usually depicted with a feather in her headdress. Those who failed her test were heavy-hearted, those who passed, light-hearted. Among the Greeks, notably Hipparchus, Libra was yugos, the yoke, the very word used by Matthew in a passage immediately following Jesus' declaration that God has revealed the secrets of the kingdom to infants. Mark uses a word from the same root, sunzeogumi. I hope I got that right. When he writes, "What God has joined, yoked together, let no man separate." So Hipparchus called this sign the yoke, and Mark is talking about the yoke of marriage, right on cue with Libra. But there's a lot more. We're going to see that in a minute. Among the Jews, the tribe of Issachar, described in Jacob's blessing as a strong ass crouched down between two burdens, is generally associated with Libra. The glyph of Libra, what's that? That's the sun setting.
Oh, sun setting.
Because this is a 24-hour clock too, of course. Remember on the 21st of March and September, the sun is balanced, right? It's perfectly balanced. So on that day, and only on that day, or those 2 days rather, does the sun rise at 6 a.m. and set at 6 p.m. Only on those 2 days. Okay? So 6 o'clock goes here, 12, 6 and 12. This is a daily cycle and it's a yearly cycle. And of course during the day there is more light than during the night, just like there is more light in summer than there is in winter. So those 2 cycles are described by this graph. But here, this is the middle point. This is the point where in the human body, Libra is the kidneys. So the sine wave is going through the body in the scale of the balance. You see the sun setting there? Okay, when you look at that, so that sun's signal that it sends yearly and daily, fractally goes through our body in many, many fractals. It goes through the atoms, it goes through everything. It's the same fractal. This is the wheel, this is the cycle, this is what is going on all the time, right? And the sun's telling you that. The sun tells us that in its path of the ecliptic. The ecliptic runs straight through our bodies. That's the ecliptic. So as above, so below. So when the sun is in Aries, it's in the head. When it's in Taurus, it's in this part. What does that mean? Well, it means it's giving its polarity to that part of your physical body, so it'll manifest physically. Usually Taurians have got nice strong necks. It shows in the neck. It actually shows. But it also shows with their ruling planet Venus, you know. It also shows in, you know, spiritual and psychological things too. Philosophers, many philosophers, as I showed last week in the presentation on astrology, are Taurians. Most of the famous philosophers in history are Taurian because they want to speak. You know, that's where the sun is. Geminians are in the lungs and in the